Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick at Qdabra Software, and I want to thank you for being in our webinar. We have not had a webinar for many weeks, so thank you for joining again. Today we have a very detailed topic, and before we get started, I just want to make sure that I have audio. Joanne, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And what about the screen? Can you see the main screen for the PowerPoint deck with the red text?
Yes, I can see the intro slide. Yep.
So I want to welcome. Thanks to Joanne and Kirby, we've got a lot of content to show you today, and this is a kind of a timely webinar because yesterday in the U.S., actually 2 days ago, on Tuesday, Microsoft kind of secretively, furtively, what's the right word? They kind of said, we're going to stop the mainstream support for InfoPath 2013. And hopefully you were aware of this because they kind of, they weren't really talking about this 2021 date. They started talking in 2014, almost 8 years ago, actually more than 8 years ago, about end of life of InfoPath 2013 being end of 2022. Then they changed to 2023, and then they changed to 2026, and then it was April 2026, and now the extended support end of life is actually, as you see here, July 14th, 2026. But they kind of decided to pull up the date here, and this we got a sense of this when we talk to Microsoft, 2 or 3 times a year. We have a call with their main team there, the team that manages InfoPath as well as Power Platform. Greg Lindhorst and I talked in April, and he said, hey, towards the summer you might see a lot more people bug you about migrating, and he was probably hinting at this kind of ninja move that they did with us by redefining the end date, giving us a mainstream date and an end of life support date. So maybe this doesn't really matter. This is just trying to get everyone to move ahead. But anyway, they did announce this, and you may have seen vendors trying to get your business, send you an email or whatnot. So I'm going to make Joanne the presenter. We've got a lot of slides to go through. We've got a demo today, and it's a very timely topic. We are going to talk about how to migrate your forms from on-prem 2013 or 2016, whatever, to the cloud. That's the topic for today. How do you move data? How do you move your forms and your list forms from on-prem to the cloud? And we have done it. We're going to show you how to do it. It's not that hard, but there are some steps involved. And so I'm going to make Joanne you the presenter because you're doing the demo, and I'll continue doing a few of these slides here, but let's switch to you first, and then we can go through a few slides and then start the demos. Can you share out? Thanks. Can you go back? Yeah, go back to the slides so we can actually continue this. And great. Yeah, so we're going to talk about our solution, which is we think it's the best solution out there, and that is because we have an app that you install that it actually understands the old format, which means that you don't have to do a recreate. And that's key. That's key. That's the whole purpose of this Qdabra Forms app that we started developing. At the same time they announced InfoPath was being deprecated back in 2014, we were working busily on this Qdabra Forms app because we knew people would have to migrate. We knew that Microsoft had not provided any migration tool at the time. We'll show you their migration tool here in a few minutes. But we started working on this thing. We called it Forms Viewer at the beginning. And Forms Viewer was our app in SharePoint that you'll see here in a minute that allows you to move your forms over, but not use InfoPath. So you can continue, you can take your InfoPath forms pretty much as is with a few modifications, move them to the cloud, and not have to pay the price of recreating them from scratch. And the app is, because we're a consulting company, we make the app available basically for the cost of usage when we have everything running in Azure. So if you're running in the on-prem version of Forms, Qdabra Forms, which we now have as well, we don't have usage, so we just have one kind of very low license cost for everyone. But if you're running in the cloud, we do it based on usage, and there's a pricing chart, and you can see it on our website. But suffice it to say that it's at least an order of magnitude, if not 2 orders of magnitude, less expensive than any other option out there. But more importantly, it's faster. And then we have added all these features. So that's really the idea here, is that we're going to give you this tool to enable a faster transition for you. Next slide. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. Okay, great. So obviously we're going to do actually a migration, or show you the results of a migration that we did last night. And we're also going to show you how to migrate a list form live. So hopefully we'll have enough time to do that. And that's why I'm going to speed up my talking here. But let's go to the next slide. So we're going to send you this document at the end. We have a short webinar survey that will, if you answer the questions, we'll send it to everyone anyway, even if you don't answer the questions. So these are the migration steps. You want to do some pre-planning. You're going to migrate the content initially. We're going to call that the initial migration, so that you can migrate your forms and fix them up. There's a few fix-ups to do. But because of that app, it's relatively simple, painless. And then we've got another solution for migrating SharePoint Designer workflows, where you could recreate them in Power Automate yourself. We've actually done a webinar on this called Central Flows. This is a free add-on to this app that you install. And then we have the final Delta migration, because you're going to do it twice. You're going to do it once to get the data up there. Then you're going to fix up your forms and whatever else. And then you're going to do it again to migrate whatever has changed on the old site in the interim. Looks like we have a question. Oh, sorry, Mark. We have the wrong 2. A week or 2. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about, but I guess I got that question a little bit too late. Joanne, can we go to the next slide? So we're going to send you the slides, but essentially we've got some slides in here that describe what we've done, and hopefully it'll help you. So let's just go quickly through these, Joanne, and then we'll so you're going to look at all the forms that you have on those sites. You're going to for each of those forms, we have a diagnostics tool that you can run to see if there's anything nasty in those forms, like code. Next, we've got you're going to need to review the 2 things that won't migrate are the SharePoint Designer workflows, because they were deprecated too, and they stopped working for 2010 last November. If you've still got 2013 workflows, they may still work in online in 365, but we recommend that you migrate them at this time, because they'll stop working soon. And I'm not sure the SharePoint migration tool doesn't migrate them, I don't think. So that you're going to have to do something there for those guys. And let's go to the next slide. And next, okay, great. And let's show them what the migration tool looks like. And go ahead and take the floor, Joanne.
All right. So this is the SharePoint migration tool. It's very easy to install. Actually, you can just go to this site here. So what I did is I went here and I just clicked to the install, public preview, and I got. So I've got this tool now, and I click Start New Migration, and I click SharePoint Server. And here I would enter the URL location of the content that I want to migrate. In this case, the content is in a SharePoint 2013 environment. So let me just grab that link here. So click Next, and it will just try to read the site contents. So basically, I just follow the wizard, and it's relatively easy to follow. So it's asking you to what's the content you want to migrate, and I just leave the defaults in that and click SharePoint. And here it's asking me to enter the SharePoint URL where I want to migrate my content. So in this case, I want to migrate it to SharePoint Online 365. So this is my site here.
I want a quick call out to Jim and Imra, who was one of the, Joanne, I just want to do a quick call out to one of our guests here that
sorry about it.
We used, I guess Jim, thanks for we used your site, actually, not your data. We used our data, but when we did this demo for you a couple months ago, so your name is still here. So sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. So it's just a sample site name. but the sample forms are just sample forms. So, well, anyway, I have sample screenshots here. I don't want to go over that because it will run the migration tool for me, and I've already done that. So, so it's very simple. It's just so the next step is to give your migration a name. So just click next to that, choose your settings here, and just click migrate. So after doing that, I was able to complete my migration. So let me show you the contents from the SharePoint 2013 site. It's just very simple. I've got one form library here and one sample list. And the form library just have 2 items and the list just 6 items here. So once the deployment is done, all of the site contents are moved through here in my 365 environment. So as you can see, I've got the list here, and I've got the sample library here with all of the documents. So as you can see, the items are already also showing in my list here. And the next step I did is to install Forms Viewer. So it's the app, it's the key to publishing your InfoPath forms to the browser. So yeah, that's about it, Patrick, for the SharePoint migration tool. Would you like me to go back to the slide?
Yeah, there's a question here too from Mark. The wrong. Oh, this is from Jim. Makes me feel at home. Thanks, Jim. Right. We will scrub this from the video before we push it onto YouTube, so we don't feel like we're flaunting your company's name. But I just want to point out there are other tools out there. We have ShareGate. There's MetaLogix. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there. We've chosen to focus on SharePoint Migration Tool because it's free and it's relatively all you need. I mean, you don't need to spend money and install one of these other tools if you're to migrate your content for all the form content you had and all the SharePoint Designer content you had. We can move those just fine with the tools we're providing you along with the migration tool. So let's go to the next slide. And the next slide. Oh, this is key. So there's going to be these 2 migrations. So let's go back one slide here, Joanne. There's at least two things you're going to do. You're going to do it up front to get the data up there so that you can do the fix-ups. And then you're going to do it at the end, like I said, to get the delta, to get any changes that happen on your on-prem site and before you lock it down. And so there's going to be at least 2, and that's why you have to specify a cutoff date. Joanne, next slide. Okay, so quickly then, this is just the app that we're talking about. We have this app that we developed, and like I said, it's free for the first 3 months. If you're online, it's usage-based, very cheap. We're talking cents per, there's dollars and cents, right? And this is like an SMS text message. Whenever you open a form, it's a few cents. And we have to pay Microsoft because we host the provider-hosted app in the Microsoft Cloud, the Azure Cloud. We have instances running in Europe. We have 3 instances in the US. Each time zone, we have an instance in Southeast Asia. And so we have this tool that we built, and it requires providing a backup. And we're storing the templates in the cloud. That's why we have the Azure Cloud, so we can serve them up for all of your clients. So you have a client, somebody who accesses your site from their cell phone, and they want to download the form, then we have to serve it up to them from the server. So we don't store any data on our servers, but we do store the templates. And you can install complete on-prem and have the on-prem version serve your cloud. And we have many customers that are doing that. We have different deployment models. So you can even install it on-prem without SharePoint if you don't want to go to the cloud. And some of these steps will still apply to you when you're fixing up your forms. If you can go from on-prem to on-prem without SharePoint, that's one option. You can go to on-prem to the cloud. Obviously, you can go on-prem to the cloud with an on-prem version of the forms services. This forms designer we'll talk about more later. So let's go to the next slide. And we do have a booklet on the website. If you go to Forms Viewer, there's an actual download, a data sheet that shows you all these different deployment options. Okay, so there are a few steps that you need to do to fix up your forms. And Joanne, like Joanne said, the first step is to install Qdabra Forms app. And this takes a couple minutes. So this is easy to do. It's in the SharePoint App Store. Do we want to show them how to do this? This is such a simple thing. Maybe we don't. But it's really easy to do. And do you have another site you want to just show them how easy it is to find it? Maybe a blank site. We can just create a site.
Create a site.
That's easier probably. So you can see here that she's got Forms Viewer there, and she's also got Forms Beta. We have the designer in a different app right now. We're going to be integrating, consolidating it into the Forms Qdabra Forms app, probably in September. But right now, the Forms Designer is still in beta. We've made a lot of progress on it. In fact, we announced it in April, and we're pretty close to feature parity with the InfoPath Designer. So you have an option there to move away from InfoPath Designer 2, but you don't have to immediately, because we retain backward compatibility. So you can continue using InfoPath Designer for a few months or a year if you want. I don't think that that's going to break in the short term. There have been a bunch of issues with support, things breaking. Microsoft broke the on-prem version of InfoPath running code back in March, April with the security update, the security, what they call a cumulative update, and they still haven't fixed that issue. So you can see Joanne just installed that app. It's really that easy, and it went so fast that you probably didn't even see what she was doing. Let's go back to the slides, Joanne. Okay, and so if you have a UDCX, let's go to the next slide. If you have a UDCX data connection, this is if you remember, universal data connection XML file is I think the acronym here. This data connection was something that was stored actually in a library. So it took a data connection and it essentially abstracted it, moved the data connection into a library, which made it easy to change the data connection. And there's a couple, obviously the InfoPath form services, the browser-based InfoPath forms wanted you to use those. We don't use those for the FormsViewer app, so you have to reconvert them. It's a pretty simple process. Let's show them that tool real quick. And this tool we provide for free as well. So in here, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so I've got a sample UDCX REST connection here. So let me just show you the tool. So we have this for download in our InfoPath dev site. So it's very easy to use. You just select the XSN file here. In this case, it won't let me because it's currently open. So I'm just gonna close it first. So, okay, let me just reopen that. Okay, so I want the before, okay. So I'm going to select the data connection. So this is the sample REST query, which is in UDCX format. And I'm going to select local folder. So you just want to make sure that the local folder contains the UDCX file. In this case, I downloaded it from the data connections library in my site. So it's here in my local folder. So this is the UDCX here. So just gonna select the library there in the folder and just convert data connection. And well, let me do that. And that's converted. So after converting, it will be in a normal format. Like I'm gonna show you the after version here. Yeah, so it's now showing in regular format, data connection, my REST web service, and I can modify it because if it's in UDCX format, there's no way you can modify it here. That's why we recommend that it's really ideal to convert them to regular data connection.
But FormsViewer will work with it even if it's not converted, right?
Right. We expect it to work. UDCX connections work in FormsViewer. But yeah, so
let's go show them the diagnostics. Can we show them the diagnostics tool real quick?
Okay. So let me just go back to my site.
So we have a diagnostics tool as well that you might want to run before you start these fix-up steps, just to get a kind of a sense of what your forms contain. So this is a tool. It's kind of a, it's another one of these simple tools that we have that gives you a lay of the land, so to speak. It provides a quick summary of what's in your form and highlights a few things that you might want to be aware of. So the data connections, for example, and I don't know, does it show the UDCX in there? It does not.
This is the after version. That's
Okay,
why
it's the after version. Let's
converted.
go to the migration analysis real quick. So the one thing that you might want to look at is this here. And you can see here that there's a couple controls that are obsolete that we want people to change. One of those is the multiple selection list box, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few more minutes. And the other one's a combo box. So those are the two controls that we consider obsolete because they're just not the best practice. And we show you how to replace them with, you don't have to change your schema, you don't have to change the form data, but you just replace the view control to make it different. So it's relatively simple to do. So those are the two fix-ups that you may want to look for in this diagnostics tool. Is if you see a warning here, then let's go back to the slides. So I think we have that on the slides here. Okay, so there's the making data connections dynamic. I think there's this step number 6 is what we're talking about with the obsolete controls. But before we get there, let's go back to 3.
Okay.
One of the other fix-ups that we recommend for everyone is to fix up your data connections. Now, why would we want to do this? Well, because InfoPath data connections were always hard-coded, right? Unless you had the UDCX file, which really didn't make them relative either, but because it's per site. So they're hard-coded to the site, and we want to make them more dynamic. So we want to make them dynamic so that it automatically looks up the data connection from the site where the form is open from and make it dynamic. And the benefit of that is that you don't have to change the data connections anymore when you go from your test site to your production site or from your dev site to your test site. And this is a huge time saver. And so that's why we recommend adding this to all your forms. Let's actually show them what this this make data connections dynamic thing looks like. That we have an XTP, it's like an XML template part of it that you can add to your forms. And once you add it, you'll get this, okay, we're going to show you how to add it. And we've done webinars on this. It's pretty simple. You add it. It's got instructions after you add it on what you need to do. Because there are different kinds of data connections, right? You've got submits, you've got queries, you've got REST queries, things like that. So this you can easily add this to your form and then go through the steps here. It takes 15, 20 minutes. And then your form is dynamic. And that means that forever in the future, you will not have to worry about hard-coded data connections when you migrate. Thanks, Joanne. There's the form. Okay. It looks very, very modern. We're going to talk about modern too in a minute. Great. So let's go back to the slides. Any questions, please add them. We are just like doing this for the first time today, so it's a bit of a discovery for all of us. So let's do it in step 4. So Joanne just demoed this form to you, and it looks modern. Let's go back and take a look at this again, Joanne. I mean, she's got rounded corners. She's got a background image that looks nice. The background image rendered before the form rendered. It shows all these instructions at the top, which we don't care about. We're going to delete those. But there's the form at the bottom, right? These are the instructions from the XTP that we just added. So this CSS, this is one of the examples of how our forms viewer and Qdabra forms in general can upgrade you to the future. It's not just about supporting the old InfoPath format. It's about moving your forms to the future, making them responsive, making them modern. And you can make your forms modern. You can make them look good in a mobile device. You can make them be dynamic based on the screen resolutions. And we've done a lot of webinars on that. This is one of the key features that we suggest adding to all of your forms to freshen them up so that your users are like, oh, that's nice. That looks a lot better than InfoPath. Because you really want to have some kind of a delineation between the old and the new. so that they know what they're getting. And they might be a little bit taken aback, but the form is going to be the same in terms of the layout. It's just going to look better, right? So we recommend this. You don't have to do this. This is optional. Next step. Yeah, for validation, then we have another command that you can run that adds some features here to make the validation look better. Do we have an example of this, Joanna? We probably don't, but
yeah, yeah, we don't have this in the sample form.
Okay, let's go. And we talked about converting the obsolete controls. Those are those combo box, list box that we showed in the diagnostics. And then lastly, you're going to have to update your user profile. And this is because Microsoft changed. This has nothing to do with us. So when if you have like username in your form, then that's going to if you're calling the get user profile service from your on-prem form, it's going to return the email address for the user in a different format than online will. If you use exact same get user profile service, so that the web service call, the web method will work the same. You know, it's going to call the one from the site because you fixed up the data connection, so it'll call the local one on online. Well, on-prem it calls the local one. When you're in 365, it's going to call the one in 365. So it's still there, but it's going to return a different format. So you just need to be aware of this, and you need to change rules in your form that use that user string or that username to send emails or do other things. What else should we mention about this, Joanne? Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's This is for the get user profile.
Yeah, and okay. So but let's go back a slide. Sorry, there's one more thing I just remembered. Reading your notes here, you can actually replace it with a cell phone-based authentication mechanism, which we have demoed in webinars. So if you're wondering, well, what's this Twilio Authy thing? Well, it's a way to make your external users, give them access to your form. So it's a huge feature add in Qdabra Forms that InfoPath didn't have, SharePoint doesn't have, Online doesn't have it, and that is this ability to enable external authentication, external usage of your forms without adding a user license. So it's a cost savings to you. But it's also a security savings because if they don't have a login, there's no password to hack. You just text them a number, and they have to enter the number, and then we know who they are, right? So they enter, there's a little bit of a sign up, they enter their name and their information, their phone number, and then we just text the number, or they can use this Authy app that generates a number on a server, on the app, on their phone. And this is a much more secure way of logging in. You know, the passwords are so yesteryear, and they're so old now that we don't recommend people use logins anymore. A lot of people still do, but in the future, you're going to use something like this. And so you may want to do it now to get rid of the user profile dependencies. That's just the other piece of information here. If you're using DBXL Active Directory, you don't have to worry because it's going to be similar so long as you have DBXL joined to your new online domain. Next slide. Okay, so let's show them how to upload the form template again to FormShare because you went so fast last time, Joanna. I don't think people saw what you did. So here's the FormShare app. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so I just go back to the templates here. So to upload templates, you just need to go first to the FormShare app main landing page. So click on the Manage Templates link here. So in order to access that, remember that you need to be a site collection admin in the site where FormShare is installed. So for uploading a new template, just click here and just select the XSN you want to upload and just drag it in the form template box. So let me just call it V2. And to make your forms organized, we provide this feature for categorizing your forms. So you can select new group, type in a new group name, or select an existing group. And then click upload. And your form is uploaded. So, yeah.
Great.
Oh, maybe this one's the before. That's why.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back to the slides.
The slide. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So there's a big improvement here for publish too. You're not going to be publishing your forms anymore. We do actually require publishing once, right now, but in the future, pretty soon actually, we'll have a feature that where you can actually generate the column. So the reason why we still require publish is you have to create the columns. And now, if you're using the SharePoint migration tool, you do not have to do this. But if you're updating your promoted properties, you will have to publish the form to generate that new column. And that's still supported. But we will have a feature in Qdabra Forms Viewer soon that will allow you to generate the columns in the library or the list from Forms Viewer itself. But it's quite a bit different from publishing in InfoPath. It's faster. As you saw, it's a couple seconds versus waiting a minute for the machinations of the rendering service to figure out if your form is valid. Okay, next slide. So you've seen Joanne test her form, and then the last step here is to relink the library. Let's talk about that. You want to show them how to do that? There's two ways to do that. If you've got Classic, you use a JavaScript and you add that to your library. If you've got Modern, you'll use the tool. Let's talk about Modern because that's where everyone's going.
Sorry, I was talking, but I'm muted. Okay, so I've got my form library here, and yeah, so I have not set up the extensions yet. So let me show you how I would do that for the form library. I'd go to Pages.
And it's important to set up these extensions because you want to open the forms using Forms Viewer, not InfoPath, obviously, because InfoPath doesn't, well, it may not be there, but yeah, because you're moving off InfoPath. So sorry.
Yeah, so Forms Viewer extensions will configure your form libraries to open in Forms Viewer. So I've got it already installed, but if it's first time installing this, so what you do is click New and Site Page, and just type something like, call this 2. And because it's a web part, so we'll look for a web part here. And just select that and edit the Forms Viewer URL by clicking this pencil icon, and just enter the URL to your Forms Viewer. So I would enter that here and click Publish.
Now, where did they get the Forms Viewer extensions web part?
So they would go to infopatdev.com
and download. Okay.
And yeah, download it here under installation and setup. Sorry.
You're so fast.
That's so fast. Okay. Go to downloads. Under Forms Viewer folder, find installation and setup subfolder, and go to that, and then look for, where is it?
There's the links one.
This is SharePoint Classic. Yeah. This one, SharePoint Modern UI. Great. So yeah.
Okay, everything should be.
And comes with and comes with documentation. Yep.
Yay. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Oh wait, we have to show them how to use it.
But yeah, I have it. So let me go back to my actual forms. Oh, just okay. So in order to configure the form library, just select the option library here. So I would select the form library that I want to configure. So normally we recommend selecting all the columns. So this just means that you want to convert all of these columns to Forms Viewer links. So typically a form library would have multiple name columns. So just select all. If you don't want, just choose which one would you like to be.
We should talk about the special fix-ups also for the list forms, but before you do that, just finish going through this step, and then before we go off of this, though, let's show them what's different about list forms.
Okay.
So just name it whatever you want. Is that right?
No, it has to match the one you used in the Forms Viewer when you uploaded the template. Okay, so it will look for that. And the Forms Viewer URL, you don't have to worry about that because it's automatically populated. Okay, so now that it's configured, I'm going to refresh this form library here, and you're going to see that I will have my, it's still reading it. Yep, so I will have the forms viewer icon here. So that means I can click this and it will open a blank form for me in Forms Viewer. And if I go back, the links here for the name columns, I can click on them and it will open in Forms Viewer.
And just for a note, we cannot override the new button for modern. That's something that Microsoft doesn't allow customizing of. So that's why we have the Forms Viewer link, which is kind of a hassle. What I recommend is not to use, create a separate page that has the Forms Viewer link on it with the button. So you can just create a separate page that has the new button on it, or just tell your staff to use Forms Viewer if they're creating new forms. We tend to use dashboards nowadays and not use the library views or the list views because we like to display more data and make it more customizable. And we've talked about dashboards in lots of our webinars, but yeah, so that's a little bit of a hassle, but that's because of the Microsoft limitation. And like I said, just create a separate page that has a new button on it that points to Forms Viewer. Okay, so if you need to tell people to, if it's confusing for people. So let's talk about the list stuff.
Okay.
Are we there? Are we there at the list stuff?
Just
yeah, we have special handling for list stuff, right? So we're taking a lot of time today because this is a lot of content. But if we go back to that previous slide, Joanne, where we talked about the extensions, I think we had, slide 25. This one on the right there, it's a special handling for list forms. Let's just mention this special thing here in the extensions tool.
Yeah. Okay. So for list forms, the steps to migrate it is to select the list option here. And so I would select the sample list for dropdown. And so same as library, I have 3 columns options here. So I'll just select them all. And template name. So sample list form. So this is the template name that I'm using for my list form. So just gonna open it. So you can see how my list form looks like. So for my list form, I'm also using change connection URL to dynamically change the main data connection because it's currently pointing to the SharePoint 2013 site. But with the Q rules, you can dynamically point that to the current site where it's deployed. Sorry?
It looks like it did not succeed.
Yeah, it did not because I'm opening it in the Forms viewer itself. But let me show you how it's done in the list here. So, so going back to setting up the Forms viewer config for the list, just select this option here because this means that when opening an existing list item, so for example, you've migrated all of your list items in the list, typically Forms viewer will try to load the item before any rules can execute. So even before you can run the change connection URL. So that's why we need to suppress it, or should I say just prevent it from loading the item on load and just let Q-rules do its thing first. This is not my list form here. It's this one. Okay. So we want to determine the SharePoint URL first and list name. So this parameter, I will show you where I appended that. And then this is where I'm changing the connection using change connection URL command. And this is the time where we want to query the item. So when suppress loading list items and form open, this box is checked. So that means that you're preventing the form or Forms viewer to load the item and run those commands first for you. So Let me go to the list here. Let me show you how that works. So I've already configured it. So let me open a blank form here and show you that in the URL, I've got something here. It should be, okay, I can see it now. Sorry about that, but focus, apply. So in the URL, it should have a FV skip list item load. Let me just, I can't see it clearly.
Control F.
About that.
Control F.
Control F.
That's getting late there, so feel free to use your friendly
Yeah.
decoder.
Yeah, so this is my parameter for list name. And yeah, so it's not showing for me. I'm so sorry about it. It's not showing for me because I'm opening a new form. But if I will open an existing one here, let me just fill this out first.
Is the next variant going to be called Tau? Okay.
So yeah, so
Delta
it's gonna have.
Has it?
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. So really what you have to do here is you have to add those rules, and then you have to make sure that you're suppressing the load. Those are the two fix-ups for the list forms, right?
Yeah, so we're now getting success here because of that parameter.
Okay, so there's a slight fix-up there, but it shouldn't take a lot of time. We can document this. Let's go back to the slides. I know we're running out of time. So we're not going to be able to show the complete migration of the list forms. We were hoping to do that, but I don't think we're going to have time. So let's go to the next slide here. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Power Automate. So if you've got SharePoint Designer workflows, a couple options for you. We have a central flow solution, which is based on Power Automate, which we'll give you. And it allows you to centralize all of your workflows in one location. So you don't have to maintain lots of different new Power Automate workflows. You're going to have to recreate the workflows if you use Power Automate out of the box. If you use Central Flow, it's more data-driven. And we've done a webinar on this. There's a link in this slide that you can click on to review that webinar. We also have a version of this that works with parallel workflows, because in SharePoint Designer, you can do serial, sequential, whatever. You can also do parallel. Well, how do you handle parallel? So it's quite a bit more involved to do parallel. So we're finally preparing this new webinar for hopefully August, and we'll show you how to do it. It's much more work. So if you're looking at your SharePoint Designer workflows, and let's go to the next. So actually, I don't think we have this. I thought we had this somewhere in here. But when you're migrating the workflows, there's a you want to look at where's the time. We talk about the time it takes. You need to look at the actual workflow in the SharePoint Designer, and just search for wherever it says parallel step, and then it's parallel. In general, the workflows will take some more time to migrate to Power Automate. If you're using Central Flow, it'll take less time, but you'll still have to spend more time, slightly more time than the fix-up for the forms. The fix-up for the forms can take an hour per form template or 2 hours. For the SharePoint Designer workflows, depending on how long they are, it may take more time. So let's move ahead. Okay, and next. Yeah, so you will need to test this stuff out. And then finally, after you've done all your testing with your key stakeholders and they've all verified that everything is looking good, then you're going to do that final Delta migration. You're going to lock down your current site. You're going to run the migration tool one more time, update any text, any files that have changed, any data files, and then you're going to add a link to that old site that shows that basically redirects people to the new site and tells them that the old site is now locked down or read-only. And this is really important as part of your migration step. You want to make sure that you create an easy, error-proof way to fail-proof way to move people over, and then you tell people that you've done it and you have a new announcement and so on. So what's next? We're done. Yeah, so we've kind of did a whirlwind tour of this migration. We're going to send you the slide deck, and the slide deck should have links to the tools in it. We're here to help you if you need help moving these forms over. Like I said, the first few forms may take you a few hours each, or even more sometimes, depending on how complex the forms are and how complex the workflows. Once you get the hang of it, it won't be that bad. And this is the main difference between what we're presenting today and what other companies will tell you. Microsoft will say, recreate everything in Power Apps. If you go to one of these other companies, they're going to say, recreate everything in our technology. Well, you don't have to do that. You can use the existing technology you have. You can make it look better. You can fix it up. You can add this modern stuff. We support all kinds of new features like PDF generation. So they're going to get more features. They're going to get a better experience. And it's not going to, it should be at least an order, if not 2 orders of magnitude, less costly, less time consuming for you. That's the guarantee. We guarantee it. And we're here, we've done countless migrations for customers. So we're here to help you if you need help. And I know several of you are current migration customers. So thank you for joining today. And if you have any questions, this is a great time to ask them. Otherwise, we hope you have a wonderful Thursday. And we hope to see you again next week. In fact, let's take a quick look at next week's webinar, Joanne, if we can go to the webinar page. I just want to give people a shout out. We've got a bunch of webinars coming this summer for you. And we're going to be doing a webinar next week on how to make forms look good. I think what we're calling it. We're displaying the workflow status in the form. There's some cool. This is all Qdabra Forms stuff now, but you can still, we have backward compatibility, like I said, to InfoPath form template format. So you're not going to lose the ability to re-edit things in InfoPath Designer. We should also show the Forms Designer too. Maybe we should show that first. Yeah, you have just go to Qdabra.com webinars.
Okay.
But first, let's show them Forms Designer because we forgot that.
Yeah.
Forms Designer is the replacement for InfoPath Designer. So just like Forms Viewer is a replacement for InfoPath, Forms Designer we've been working on forever and a day is here for you. And if you open up one of these forms, you'll see that there's a button. This is the beta, so you've got the legacy version as well as this new version. And we're trying to retain some of the look and feel of the InfoPath Designer, but you can see this is browser-based. It doesn't have the InfoPath anywhere in it, but it does allow you to edit and modify your forms. We've done a lot of work on this. There's a rule editor. You can add new views. You can add data connections. So pretty much we are very close to feature parity for the main features of InfoPath. Probably another month to go, and we'll call it 1.0, and we'll ship it and make it part of the main app. Right now, it's still that separate install, which we make available on our page, so you can install it. Let's go to the Qdabra.com and just type in www at the beginning. Type in the full address. I don't know why Chrome does this, but Chrome is trying to be smart.
Well,
you're being too smart. You're trying to be smart. You need to just go to Qdabra.com.
Yeah.
Go to the bottom.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. You've done an amazing job today. Yeah, so for next week, we're going to be talking about displaying status bars, progress bars in your forms. It's really cool. Mel's got some new techniques that she's going to show. Very, very display cool stuff. Very awesome modern design. Highly recommend that you. This will be a shorter webinar than today, and then the following week we're going to talk about how to do data change tracking. This is part 2 of a form versioning webinar that we started in May. In August, we're going to talk about parallel workflows, and then we're going to probably return to this SharePoint on-prem online migration tips again in August and do another repeat of this, since it's so timely right now with everyone moving. Any questions for us? I want to thank you all for joining, and once again, have a wonderful Thursday. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirby.
Everyone.